Welcome to the first episode of a new series I like to call, How Do I Play This? This episode, Fluffals. Now the first thing I want to cover in this video is one of the most important things in the deck, and that is successfully getting off a wings play. Now a wings play is just a term that I use for being able to activate and resolve Fluffal Wings effect in order to get more cards, get more resources, look at your finalized hand, and make as many plays as you can to burn through your opponent's resources and go at their throat. So the wings play allows you to really get the resources you need to go for that big play, that big OTK. The easiest way to do this is of course having wings and bear in your hand. The conditions to activate wings is having a face-up toy vendor and another Fluffal in your grave in order to actually banish with wings effect. So having these two is just the perfect combo. Bear of course meets both conditions in one fell swoop, so you can activate bear in hand, send bear to the graveyard in order to set a toy vendor directly from your deck. You can then activate that toy vendor, send wings from your hand to grave for the cost of toy vendor, and you now have your condition. You have another Fluffal in grave with wings and a face-up toy vendor. So that's the easiest way to do it in the deck. I'm going to go ahead and cover a couple more ways just to show you the variants. Another way is of course having your wings and dog. So you can then normal dog can search bear, and then you have your finished combo right there in your hand. Of course, if you start the other way around, dog and bear, just normal dog, search wings, and you have your combo again. So that's another way of doing it. The last way I want to cover, although there are many different ways in the deck to set up the condition for wings, is that fusing with wings is just as effective. So let's say you have wings, toy vendor, owl, and sabers, for example. Let's say you start with these 4 cards. Now, of course, the first thing that you want to do is normal summon the owl to get a polymerization from your deck. I'm using Bandai polys, so sorry if that's confusing to you. I just think they look really nice. You can then go ahead and fuse into a tiger or a wolf. I probably would go for tiger and try to blow up as many of your opponent's cards as you can using those materials. And then you have the conditions met once you activate the toy vendor. You have the toy vendor and the wings and another Fluffal engrave. Now, another way that I would do this that some of you have probably spotted, which I think is more efficient, is instead of using all those 3 materials, just fuse these 2 and have this activated when you activate poly. Fuse these 2, make a tiger, and tiger can target one of your opponent's cards and your own toy vendor. Blow up your own toy vendor in order to search a bear directly from your deck, activate bear in hand in order to set a toy vendor from your deck, activate the toy vendor, and now you have the wings play on top of having the extra owl. But it really depends on your opponent's field, so there is no right and wrong way to do it. You just adjust your plays depending on what your opponent has. So there are many different ways of getting off the wings play in the deck, but those are the few main ways you're going to be seeing it. The next thing I want to cover in the deck is maximizing your fusion potential, slash getting as many uses out of polymerization as you can. Let's say you start with a hand like this: dog, poly, chain, frightful fusion, Fluffal sheep, and sabers. Now, this is a really good hand. This is a hand I'd love to see. It's not a great hand, but it's still a really good hand. Obviously, the first thing you're going to want to do is normal summon the dog. Now, what do you search off of the dog? Well, a lot of you, you might think it's really straightforward, and it is, but some people just don't tend to understand it, so I'm just trying to explain it to people and really show them why it's good to search this particular card. So, some people might search something like a, let's go through the deck here, maybe some people would search a rabbit, for example. Let's say they want to get their dog back from grave. Well, that's fine, but you already have the sheep. So that's out of the question. Now you might be thinking I'm kind of patronizing some of you, but some people just don't. I've seen plenty of players not search the obvious cards, so let's stop tap dancing around it. You need to undoubtedly, infallibly search cat. This card just maximizes the amount of plays you can make in a turn. It helps you eat through your opponent's back row, eat through any effects they may have, blow up their cards with Tiger, for example, and guarantee it more by making this chain link too, so that they can't strike you. And it really, really helps consolidate your plays. It does so many things for you. This one little kitty cat is your godsend. So you want to search this the first chance you get if you have the poly and a way to fuse. The next thing I want to cover, you need to be able to resist the urge of searching another Frightfur Fusion. Frightfur Fusion is a great card, but you can only use it once per turn. And if you're going to go for the kill, there's no point in getting one for next turn. So, don't get me wrong, it's always nice to be safe, but if you analyze the board and the field, and you know you're really going to be able to go for the kill, there's like a 90% chance or 80% chance of you going for that kill, just go for it. Make as many plays as you can. With our current hand, if we searched another Frightfur Fusion off of this chain, we would only have 4 fusions in this turn. So we would have 2, because Cat recycles the poly, that's a guarantee, and then, actually no, we'd only have 3. So that's even worse. That is even worse. So, with this, you want to search Frightfur Factory. Now, I'll quickly play up the hand just so you can understand what our board would be if we didn't do that. So, the first thing that I would do is, of course, make Tiger. So, use these 3 cards. Let's go ahead and grab my extra deck. Make a Tiger, target 2 of our opponent's cards, Chain Link 1, Chain Link 2, Cat target the poly. Add that back to hand. The next thing, there's a couple ways you could do the next thing. The way that I would do it is just by going poly. Let's go ahead and fuse these 2 and make ourselves a sabre-tooth. Sabre-tooth Chain Link 1, targeting Tiger. Chain as Chain Link 2 to search a Frightfur card. I would search Factory. Let's actually show you what would happen if you don't search Factory, actually. That's a good idea. So let's not search Factory. So we use the poly for the sabre-tooth. Put this back. Let me just grab the other Frightfur Fusion. So there's our Frightfur Fusion that we searched off of chain. Now we're left with this. We can go Frightfur Fusion, and best we can do is make a sheep, for example, or a wolf, which is fine. That's absolutely fine. You have a good amount of plays there. However, I will propose to you the better option. Rather than having a dead card Frightfur Fusion in your hand, instead of searching this, just search the Factory. The reason you want to search the Factory, well, special summon the sheep, activate the sheep, return the dog to hand. Let's go ahead and special something from grave. Let's go ahead and special the chain. Whichever one you're not going to banish with Frightfur Fusion. I'm then going to go Frightfur Fusion. Go ahead and banish Cat and Sabers to make ourselves a wolf. It's a little hard to get this all on the board. And now this goes to grave. And now we can activate Factory in order to banish this from grave. And I would fuse personally, just doesn't really matter, but I wouldn't use the chain. I'd leave it on field to try and get the other Frightfur Fusion search. But anyway, this is an imaginary hand. I just put it together to show you an example. For a second sabre-tooth, sabre-tooth can target and bring back Tiger, and this would be a board. And this is a lot more threatening, in my opinion, than if you had the dead Frightfur Fusion in hand. And after all of this, we still have a dog in hand. So even next turn, if they don't get rid of this, we can normal dog, search Sabers, make a Tiger, blow up one of their cards, blow up this, get it back, banish Frightfur Fusion. It opens up your plays so much more. Being able to banish this with this and just having this in general, it's a once per turn continuous poly basically. So it's really, really useful, really effective. And of course, now we have the extra saber-tooth. During main phase 2, if by some miracle they live, we can make a rank 8 and interrupt them with a Felgrand or a Titanic Galaxy or a Lancelot or whatever. So in my opinion, it's much better to maximize your fusion potential and make more plays than it is to have a guaranteed Frightfur Fusion next turn. It's just really important to get as many plays off as you can to burn through their resources and really go for the throw. Now the next thing I want to cover is going to be really, really quick, but it's knowing how to go first. So in Fluffals, you never want to go first, but you have to be prepared for it. So, just throw together a quick hand. Not the best hand in the world, but it's still a really good hand. You have the wings play, you have a way of getting poly, you have an instant fusion, which is amazing, so it is still a really good hand. You have to know how to go first. Now, some people see the obvious route, but others just don't, and that's what this video is for, is to show people which direction is the best direction and why. The first thing that you want to do, I would go ahead and normal the owl, because we need poly to play. We need to be able to fusion some. So we can search poly for our next turn. And of course we can't normal dog and owl in the same turn, so we might as well use one of them now. The reason that I would do that is because I'm going to go ahead and do the wings play next, and I want to minimize the number of non-Fluffal cards I can draw with Toy Vendor's effect. I'd go ahead and then, you know, do the wings effect. I'm not going to grab the Toy Vendor, but just to give you, the idea. And that would then recuperate your hand. You would then end up with 6 cards in your hand during the end phase, potentially 7 if you drew a Fluffal from ditching this with Toy Vendor, which would be really, really nice. That gives you a basic idea of kind of how to play out a hand if you have to go first. If you start with 2 monsters that you, like if you start with 2 owls or 2 dogs or an owl and a dog, or even like a dog and an owl, like if you start with any amount of monsters that isn't 1 that you need to normal summon, just normal summon one of them, because there's no point keeping it in your hand. At least it puts up some kind of a wall. I mean, Owl has a whopping 1,000 attack. I mean, you take 1,000 less damage, so you might as well do it. You might as well get the search, thin out your deck, and get ready for next turn. This was just a very easy hand I put together, just to give you an example, but there are so many fucked up hands you just don't want to do anything with. That's understandable. You don't have to. 70% of the time, when I'm made to go first with Fluffals, I generally just don't do anything. Because I want to wait till next turn. But with a hand like this would be a really good starting hand because you can actually do things and thin out your deck and at least make some plays. The only time that you want to start going off and fusion summoning and making a big board when you're going first with Fluffals is if you're going up against another OTK deck that you're going to need defense against. Or a deck like Counter Fairies, for example, where they're just not going to let you play. It's always good to make your board before your opponent can interrupt you. If they're running a very interruptive deck that requires them to go first, then sometimes it isn't bad to go first with Fluffals, because then you can just get off your big board before they can interrupt you. So there you go. That's why to go first sometimes and how to go first. You just want to thin out your deck. If you have multiple normal summonable monsters that get effects like Dog and Owl, just use one of them. Do your wings play if you can first turn to thin out your deck. And potentially set up for another wings play next time. Let's say I drew a Fluffal off of ditching this with Toy Vendor. I would actually special the dog. Why? I can then search bear or wings with that dog, and then when I use the wings play and I get the Toy Vendor going to grave at the end of that, I can then use that to search the other combo piece and have a wings play in my hand for next turn, so that I can get even more cards. So yeah, it's always good to at least do something on your first turn if you can, whether it be thinning out your deck or just setting up for next turn. You always want to try and do something on your first turn, but like I said, 70% of the time you just probably won't do anything because you want to save your resources for next turn. So that's why and how to go first with Fluffals. The next thing I want to cover is when to let go of a tiger. Tiger's amazing, but you can only control one of them. So let's say I go to blow up my opponent's back row, they interrupt me. You know, let's say they Veil me, let's say they Fog Blade me, whatever, they stop my effect. Well, I'm left with a dead tiger. I can't make another one because I control a tiger. I have a student that I'm currently teaching how to play Yu-Gi-Oh! She's really, really good, but she still doesn't quite understand the messed up plays in Fluffals, despite how good she is. She did understand it once she made the play, but some people, they just never think to do this, so I wanted to cover this, even though it's not the most common thing to come up in the deck. You need to know when to let go of a tiger to make another tiger. So, if I had this tiger, I need to get rid of it. Easiest way to do that, make a sabre-tooth. So I'd make a sabre-tooth using the tiger. I would choose to not bring back the tiger with the saber-tooth, because then I don't control the tiger. I can go ahead and fuse from my hand and make another tiger and try again to blow up my opponent's back row. You really don't want your opponent having back row. It's awful. So do everything you can to get rid of their back row, and if that means letting go of a tiger and going minus, let go of the tiger and go minus. Sometimes you just have to do it. I mean, this deck can plus really hard with wings plays, and dog and owl, of course, are a +1 each when they're normal summoned or special summoned, so this deck can just plus really hard. It is necessary sometimes just to know when to let go of a tiger and do this kind of a play. So there you go. That's that. The last thing I want to cover is deck thinning before using certain effects. Now that's mostly before using Toy Vendor. I have been stressing so far, I've been stressing really badly to you guys, I can't stress it enough, that you don't really need to draw a Fluffal off of Toy Vendor's effect. It's a bonus, but it is not a necessity. However, I still think it is a really good idea to try and go even off the effect. So let's say you start with a hand like this. Or better yet, just to give you even more of an example, let's say you start with a hand like this. The first thing you'd want to do is, of course, use Bear's Effect in order to get your toy vendor. Let me just grab one here. So you have your toy vendor. Go ahead and activate it. Don't activate the effect yet. You want a normal owl to search a poly, and of course you want to use the King of the Swamp to search poly. This basically just thins out your deck and makes it so that you have a much better chance of going even with the ditching the Fluffal to draw card. It just takes out a lot more non-Fluffal monster cards out of your deck. So that in my opinion is incredibly important. Even though you don't really care too much if you draw the Fluffal off of this, it is always good. It is always a bonus. Best thing you can do is maximize your chances, but never rely on it because it is based on luck. You can increase your chances and make it, you know, more statistically sound that you're going to draw a Fluffal by doing stuff like that. So always thin your deck before making these kinds of plays. Even if by using the King of the Swamp we now don't have an edge impover on our side, by the time we're done with the Wings effect we can search a Sabers with this anyway. So always prepare for the future and try to thin out your deck to make your luck just a lot better. Okay, so now that I've gone over what I consider to be the key points or the basics of the deck, I'm going to go ahead and go over a few test hands here as the last portion of the video. So I'm going to go ahead and shuffle up and draw out a 5-card hand, draw the 6th card, show you the hand, and then make some plays, and we'll see what we get. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so I've shuffled up. I'm going to go ahead and cut the deck. And let's see what kind of a hand we get. So, let's start with the first 5 cards. So, Instant Fusion. Owl already. That's a saber-tooth already, so that's really good. Bear. Chain. Okay, I'm really liking this hand. If we can get a Wings would be perfect. So, next card is a Toy Vendor. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. And then I always test with 6 cards because I always make the assumption I'm going second when I test hands with Fluffals because you can't really do too much going first. You can't kill them, so I usually test with 6 on the assumption I'm going second. So the 6th card is Polymerization. Not bad. Okay, so there's a few different ways to get started. Personally, what I would do is I would go ahead and use Bear's Effect to start with. So let's use Bear to set a Toy Vendor from our deck. Oh, there's one on the bottom. So let's go ahead and set that. Shuffle up. And then I would activate that Toy Vendor. And I would activate the Toy Vendor's effect, discarding this Toy Vendor for cost. So let's go ahead and do that. And see what we get. So drawing Book of Eclipse. So we have to discard that. We can then activate our Toy Vendor in the graveyard. So I'm going to do that. Now, there's a couple things we could do here. Now, what I'm personally going to do is I'm going to go ahead and search Wings. So I'm going to go ahead and search Wings. And the reason I'm doing that is because I can now fuse, put Wings in the graveyard, and then use Wings effect. And I can do that without normal summoning yet. If you can use your Wings effect before normal summoning, so you can choose what to search off of the Toy Vendor, that's always good. We already have the Owl, so there's a good chance I'm just going to be normal summoning that, but yeah. I'm going to go ahead and activate the Poly, since we have the Bear Engrave, and we have the face-up Toy Vendor. So I'm going to go ahead and activate Poly, and I'm probably just going to be fusing my Chain and Wings. Actually, there's 2 ways you could play this out. You could activate the Instant Fusion and then make a Saber-tooth using Wings and Frightful Sheep you get off of the Instant Fusion. I'm actually going to do it that way, because that's actually a slightly better way. So let's go ahead and Instant Fusion, pay the 1,000, and then let's go ahead and fuse our Wings and the Frightful Sheep for a Saber-tooth. Get our Saber-tooth effect to bring back, target and bring back the sheep. So we already have really good plays. It might appear like we only have 2 cards left in hand, but we're about to get 3 more because of the Wings effect. So let's go ahead and use the Wings Engrave by banishing it to target the bear and banish it to draw a card. So we get a Raigeki. That's not bad. they can clear an opponent's board. And then send the Toy Vendor to grave to get an additional draw. Fry for Fusion, that's really, really good. I'm really liking this hand. And then activate Toy Vendor's effect to get a search. A cat, because we haven't normal summoned yet, so we can normal summon and get the effect of our owl in order to search a poly, like that. So we're looking at a really good hand right now. Now we could make a sheep, another sheep using these two. I'm personally going to go straight for a saber-tooth, using this sheep and the kitty cat. I'm going to go saber-tooth as chain link 1 and cat as chain link 2, because we want to avoid getting striked. If they're going to strike, we're going to have to strike the kitty cat, in which case we still have plays. And then of course saber-tooth brings back the sheep, like that. I'm actually then going to make... I want to make another saber-tooth, but we're slowly running out of space on the field. We actually have too many plays for our own good, so... I'm going to have to clear some space on the board. So let's go poly. Let's go ahead and make the third saber-tooth. I am going to make immune to destruction, because we have used 2 already. So let's go ahead and fuse those 3 for our third saber-tooth. We're going to go saber-tooth chain link 1 and chain link 2. So, chain's effect, that's chain link 2, and saber-tooth bring back the sheep. Now, in this particular situation, I am going to say that it's okay to search a second Fright for Fusion, because we're going to use one, and we need one for next turn to guarantee a fusion summon, because we don't have any more materials. If this was a Fluffal, if this Raigeki was a Fluffal instead, we would have materials to make another something. Actually, no, we can't even make it a saber-tooth. We used all 3. So let's go ahead and search ourselves a Fright for Fusion right on the bottom, waiting for us. And then we can use the Fright for Fusion to make another sheep. So we're going to have 3 saber-tooths, 1 immune to destruction by battle, and 2 sheeps. A second sheep. So this is our field. And in our hand we have the Raigeki and the Fright for Fusion, so we can go Raigeki, blow up our opponent's board, and there we go. So that right there is game, unless they have a lot of back row to stop us. Personally, because we couldn't really clear out any back row, if they had back row, just because of like drowning Mirror Force, quaking Mirror Force, stuff like that, I would actually just attack with the sheep, because they're Armades, so our opponent can't activate stuff like that. They basically have the same effect as Armades. If you don't know what Armades is, basically when we attack or are attacked with these monsters, our opponent cannot activate any cards or effects till the end of the damage step. So these are 2 guaranteed attacks. They're gaining 1200 altogether, so these are 2 guaranteed 3200s. And then I wouldn't even attack with these if they still had back row. But because we have these 2 here, we can go ahead and overlay for a rank 8. Felgrand, interrupt our opponent. They have to basically deal with a Felgrand, 2 sheeps, and a saber-tooth immune to destruction. And then we have this for next turn, of course. So there we go. And I guess we can see what our next card is. It is a chain. Not bad. Not the best thing in the world. We've already searched practically all of our Fright for stuff. But there we go. That's how that hand would play out. I'm going to try and speed that up, so you probably won't hear too much of me talking. I'm going to try and speed that up as much as I can, because that actually took 11 minutes, or 9 minutes to roughly play out that hand. So we have Fusion Recovery, Toy Vendor, Twin Twisters, that's really good already. That hand I actually really like already. Sheep, and Twin... okay. Hand went from promising to not so promising. I'd really like to see a wings off of this. A wings or a bear or a dog. Wings and bear would be great, but dog would also be fine. So we are gonna get a King of the Swamp. Okay. This hand is really odd. It's a little janky. I don't often see hands like this with the deck, but let's go ahead and play it out anyway for fun. Let's see what we can do. Obviously, Twin Twisters ditching the Toy Vendor is the first thing we're going to do to get that effect engraved. So let's blow up a couple of our opponent's back row and get the effect. I'm going to search the dog. I'm then going to use King of the Swamp to get my polymerization. And I'm going to normal the dog and search ourselves as sabers. So we don't really have too many great plays, but we have enough. What's really cool, I guess, you could say, I guess, cool about this, is that we do have the 2 twin twisters, so we can actually wipe out practically our opponent's entire back row to guarantee plays. If we wanted to go ahead and use the second twin twisters, we could ditch the sabers and blow up 2 more of their back row, special the sheep, and return the dog to hand to special the sabers from grave. We can go poly to fuse to blow up a couple of our opponent's monsters, since we've practically cleared their back row. I would hope so. At this point, we've cleared the fucking back row. Fusion recovery to return the poly and sabers to our hand in order to fuse those 2 to make a wolf, which would be almost game. That would leave them with, I think, like 300 left, something like that. Basically, at this point, we've probably cleared out all of their monsters of back row. So if they had a really big board and committed, we could have wiped it all clean, but we didn't get the best luck. We got quite an odd hand. You could go really old school if you wanted to, and do as much damage as you can and overlay for a photon strike bouncer to deal that last bit of damage. I would rather go M7 and use his effect to get back my dog. Next turn we would draw another dog, not the best, but I mean, shit happens. I'd probably normal this dog, search a bear, next turn normal that dog, search a wings, get a wings play off, see what we can do. But you never know. You never know your opponent's board when you're testing hands. It's all speculation. And see what we get. So, chain, that's a good start. Poly, sabers, Book of Eclipse, wings. Okay. This hand can be really good or really bad depending on the next card. I mean, not really bad, but the 6th card makes all the difference in the world with hands like this. So let's see what we get. Another poly, not particularly what we want. So looking at this hand, the best we can do, make a, I mean, it wouldn't be terrible, honestly. If our opponent didn't have much back row, we could definitely do some shit. If we play it out here, we can go poly, make ourselves a sheep. Oops, toss our wings across the fucking, across the playmat. So we can make ourselves a sheep, get chain's effect, go ahead and search a Frightful Fusion. We go poly again, fusing the sheep and the sabers for a sabre-tooth, and we can go Frightful Fusion, and we can make another sheep, or I personally would go for tiger, blow up a couple of our opponent's monsters and or back row, and if they don't have anything to stop us, we have game already at this point. But yeah, not a very good hand, because we've just basically blown our entire hand on a mediocre field that could be broken with the right trap. At the right time. So yeah, although we could kill them if they had, you know, 2 monsters and no back row, or 2 back row and no monsters. If they only had 2 cards committed to the board, we could blow them both up and just go for game. But yeah, I mean, it depends. We can never really know what our opponent has. So that could have been a good hand. We could kill him. Any hand that can kill him is a good hand, but I like to consider a hand like that not very good at all. Basically a bad hand, just because there isn't much safety there. That was a few test hands. Hope you kind of got a good idea of what the deck can do and how to play out the hands. Thanks for watching the first episode of How Do I Play This. I appreciate it. If you want to see me do another episode of How Do I Play This on another type of deck, you can leave requests below if you wish, and let me know if you want to see more things like this, some more professional content, I suppose. Thanks a bunch, take care, and duel on.